What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. You know who this is. It's the one and only dad bod god, the bald, the beard, and the fucking beautiful Piers Austin. And tonight, my guest is returning to the show. He is now the MCW, Melbourne City Wrestling World Champion. He's also the GPW Heavyweight Champion. We're going to get into that and much, much more with my guest, Mr. Mitch motherfucking Waterman. But before we do, let's take a quick second to thank our amazing sponsor for tonight's episode, which is Sleefs.com. That's SLEEFS, Sleefs.com. If you or someone you know is an athlete, you need to go and check out Sleefs. They've got all your athletic gear and wear covered. They've got armbands, compression shorts, compression socks, headbands, boots, mouth guards, and they've even got those dirty boxes that I've been raving about for the longest time. Look, I'm an active guy. I'm busy nonstop. I work full time. I podcast my ass off. I go to the gym. I run around after my 3 crazy kids and my crazy wife. Just kidding, darling. But these boxes stay dry, they stay fresh, and they are the most comfortable boxes that I own to keep me feeling comfortable on the go. So go and check them out. Use that promo code MWAPOD to get a 10% discount on your final purchase. Also, wherever you are finding us, I appreciate you for tuning in to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. I appreciate you tuning into this episode and many, many more to come. If you please, if you're listening or if you're tuning in on YouTube, please make sure you like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, share with your friends, your cousins, your aunties, your uncles, your enemies, whoever. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, please give us a 5-star review. I appreciate it. It helps us with our analytics, and it helps us reach more amazing people with more amazing conversations like this one right now that we're about to get into. But without further ado, let's get into my conversation with the MCW champion, baby, Mitch motherfucking Waterman. Yeah! Hey, we are back on Shooting the Shit Uncensored. Mitch Waterman in the house. Mitch, thank you for coming back on the show. Man, it's been a long time since we had you on the first time. I'm so glad to have you back on. Thank you.
It's been a minute, man. Thanks for having me. Good to be back. I'm glad to be being promoted by the Elephant Undies again, the dirty boxes, the most comfy jocks in the game.
That's it, man. We got to get you a couple of pairs of those, man. Like the world champ needs to make sure that he's got some comfy boxes and those dirty boxes, man. That's the shit right there, bro.
That is the shit right there.
But dude, last time we were on, you were pretty much, I think, starting this singles journey, right? Like, you're coming out of the Brat pack. And you were sort of at the time cementing your name as a singles competitor and going from tag team, specialist, which you were in one of the hottest tag teams in the country, and dare I say the world at some stage. How have you found, the time going from being tag wrestler to now being a main eventer and in that main event slot?
It's been fun, man. It's been very different. It kind of has felt in some ways similar to the transition we had in Brat Pack from going from just another team to kind of running that tag division, being the faces of the division. Kind of feels like the same thing. It's been a bit of a quick rise from Ballroom Brawl last year to the championship match with Brooksy to now. That feels like a lifetime ago. It's all gone so fast. But it's been fun, man. I can't complain. It's been cool.
You mentioned the match with Brooksy, and the build up to that match was kind of like you were the young kid going and watching him in MCW shows, winning his first title and going into that. For yourself, like, was it a surreal moment, going in knowing, that you were going to have this match and that you were going to be, have the belt put on you and you were going to be the guy? Like, were you feeling like stressed? Were you sort of like, what was your mindset about?
Um, it was surreal in the sense that that legit was my dream match in Australia. Somewhere, but I really got to look for it one day. I think I've said this before too somewhere. I legit wrote that down as my goal in Australian wrestling. That was what I was striving for. I wanted to wrestle Adam Brooks in the Thornbury Theatre for the MCW World Championship. I wrote that down when I was breaking into wrestling. So in that sense, it was surreal. I was really excited for it. But I would be lying if I said I didn't feel a lot of pressure going into that one. I was training like a maniac. I was doing all kinds of stuff to train my body, but also my mind to just mentally be ready for that. Because, like I said before, the journey from winning the Ballroom Brawl to all of a sudden you're a singles wrestler to all of a sudden you're wrestling for the title in the biggest match of your life. That all happened really, really quick. And there had to be a mental switch in there to do that and be successful at that.
I mean, like, mentioned the mental switch and stuff like that. Like, what were some of the things that you were going through there? Like, you said it was like stressful because it was like, on your mind going in there. But were you doubting your ability? Were you thinking you were going to go, like, you may go in there and shit the bed? Like, what was it that was causing you that sort of, mistrust or misthought in your mind?
Yeah, all of the above. Uh, I've heard something called like imposter syndrome. I was definitely, I don't know if it was to a full extent, but I was definitely doubting. Like, I had that thought in my mind of, you know, how humiliating it would be to go in there in that match and shit the bed and not absolutely nail it. I wanted it to be perfect. Um, and walking out of it, I felt it pretty much was. I was so happy with that match. It was, I got actually very emotional after it and back. For a number of reasons, not just for winning such a big championship. It was for a number of reasons. Some that only very few people around me would even know. But I heard something recently like the only thing that separates the coward and the hero is the way they react to the fear. They both feel the same fear, but one cowers and one uses that fear to drive them. And I definitely was using that image in my head of the terrible match, letting everyone around me down. I was using that to drive me. So, uh, in saying that, I was doing a lot of um, meditation, a lot of things that was challenging my mind so I could stay calm in uncomfortable situations because I knew it was most likely going to be, a really long match and a style of match I haven't really done much as a singles guy. I've barely done any singles matches, and this was going to be long, and this was going to be a really, main event style match. So I knew I was, no matter how hard I train, I'm going to get tired, and I was trying to prepare my mind to stay calm when that does happen and keep going. I know I've got the wheels to keep going. I just need to stay calm and stay sharp.
Have you seen people in the past, like, go into situations like that and they do get exhausted and tired and just like, where do they go from there? Like, do some people just sort of, they get that level of exhaustion in their body that they just go, fuck it, I can't do it anymore. I'm done. I'm done.
Well, it's not even so much, okay, I'm done. Like, I was never going to do that. I was never going to be in the ring and go, oh, I'm done. I wanted everything to be perfect. I wanted to get to that 35, 40-minute mark and still move as well as I was at the start of the match. I felt I achieved that other than the injury, but in saying that, all that mental preparation worked because who was going to predict that in the first 5 minutes of the match, I was gonna absolutely destroy my foot and barely be able to walk the rest of the match. I genuinely feel if I hadn't done all that mental prep, I wouldn't have been able to do that beforehand. I'm not like saying I'm the toughest guy in the world or anything, but that was very much a situation where I was panicking for a second there. As soon as it happened.
Yeah.
So
I mean, like, because you broke the foot, right?
yeah, I did a bunch of shit to it. I tore a bunch of ligaments, fractures, a break. I did the works, and it was on a dive right at the start of the match. So I had to do the rest of the match like that.
I mean, like in that situation, was it like adrenaline kicks in and do you not notice it straight away? Like, is it something like once things start slowing down, you're like, oh shit, that doesn't feel right?
It's funny because like I always hear people say, "Oh, when my adrenaline's going, I don't feel anything." Blah blah blah. I knew I did it. I was in a lot of pain, and actually, if anyone wants to go back and watch the match, after I do the dive at the start of the match, I throw him back in the ring. I get in the ring. I can barely walk for a solid like 3 minutes. But in saying that,
Jeez.
it got to a point where I kind of mentally got back on track and just forgot about it. But it was definitely hurting. I could feel it.
But how do you get back on track mentally? Like, do you just try and block that out that like your foot's completely fucked? How do you like block that out though?
I had to. Yeah, I had to. I just had to. There's no way out. Like you said before, like the only other option is, all right, cool, I'm done. Tell the ref it's done. I can't continue. And then what? I let down. I let down my family, my friends. I let down anyone who's ever given me a shot in wrestling. I let down MCW. I let down Brooksy, who wanted to go out there and tear the house down. Like when you weigh it up in that minute, man, like you just get back on track and do what you got to do.
Yeah, but dude, I got to take my hat off to you, man. Broken foot going in there and putting on the match that you guys did was a phenomenal match. Great storytelling.
Thank you.
Great, match in itself, and I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Yourself coming out of that, like, did you have to go get surgery on the foot? Like, what was the recovery like?
Nah, I didn't have to get surgery or anything. I had to stay in a moon boot, and I was on crutches too. I had to take weight off my foot for, they said, a much shorter time than it ended up being. And that's why at the next show, when I come out on a moon boot, I said I was going to be, doesn't matter if I'm in a moon boot, blah, blah, blah. Next show, I'll be wrestling. I thought I was going to be okay by then to wrestle Bonza. And as it got closer to the date, I quickly realized I jumped the gun a little bit, and maybe this was going to take a while longer than I thought. I got through it, and I've continued ever since, and it's slowly, progressively gotten better, but it's been a lot longer of a process than I thought. I've only been able to start going for runs again within the last like month, and that happened. When was the match with Brooksy? That was the start of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez. So it's taken a fair bit. You're lucky that you probably didn't need to get surgery on it though. Like, was that even an option on the table, or was it like, oh, you don't need it? This is
No. No, it wasn't needed. It wasn't needed, but it nearly would have been better if it was needed. Because at least I would have known exactly how long it was going to take.
But it's crazy with some of those with some surgeries when they go and do it. Like, I remember like my mum a few years ago had her like ankle completely broken, where it was like foot was like in all different directions and stuff, and it happened like but it happened in the most like ridiculous way, like just slipping over on like a small ice cube, or was it like something ridiculous, right? And it's those incidents where you have like these injuries, it's like which are so gruesome and terrible looking, and then it's like someone has this gnarly incident and stuff like that, and it's just like, yeah, you're all good. You'll be walking in a week. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, that was the same with me. They essentially said, don't walk on it for like 8-12 weeks, and then it'll be, mwah. And it definitely wasn't.
I mean, did you were you trying to push the limit in that time? Like, were you trying to run on it, train on it within 8 to 12 weeks? Is that why it took a little bit longer to heal?
Um, mm, yes and no. Like I was still going to the gym and doing stuff. Just not with my legs, obviously. But when it was getting closer to that match with Bonza, um, it still wasn't feeling okay. And I couldn't run or anything, but I was doing some cardio stuff at the gym and whatnot because I knew I needed the lungs. This is a main event world championship match with a guy I respect a lot. So I'm not going to go in there and
Mm,
shit the bed just because I'm hurt. I need to be ready for it. So I was probably doing some cardio stuff that was still pushing through my foot and whatnot. I probably shouldn't have been doing it to get ready. It's probably a lot of things um,
yeah.
altogether as to why it took so long. Like after I did that match, I kept wrestling. I didn't stop again to take time off. Um, however, I've had a lesser schedule this year, which has probably benefited it a lot.
Yeah, man. And you've been wrestling, for MCW. You're a coach at MCW. You're also starting to pop up at some of the other promotions as well. And one of the feds actually commented on the post when I announced that you were going to be on the show and said that you're also their champion as well. So that's GPW, I believe.
Yeah, Gippsland Pro Wrestling, man. Um, yeah, I've been the champion there
So are they,
for. Sorry,
I said, are they new? Like, are they
no,
just
they've been
starting
around
up?
for probably. They've been rebooted by Andy Rhodes for probably 5-ish years now, I would say.
Oh,
Um,
wow. Okay.
and fun fact, I'm undefeated there. I've never lost a match, and I've been the champion for a very, very long time, well over 1,000 days now. It's got to be, man. It could be pushing 2,000 at this point. I don't know. It's been a while.
Yeah, right. Fair enough, man. Fucking
Let's
hell.
we won't
So
we won't say that's because of COVID at all. Nothing to do with that. Just
yeah,
just that
exactly.
good.
We just put it down. We'll just put it down. Yeah, kayfabe, brother. You're just that good, Waterman. But
Yeah, yeah,
as far as going out there and working for other promotions, now that you've sort of like become the guy in Melbourne, do you want to start going and doing more interstate stuff, going and start doing working for other feds throughout the country?
yeah. I think that's the next step for me now. I think you know. Again, I bring things back to Brat Pack, but I have to. That's just what my experience has been. Most of my career was in that. You level up to a point, you become the guys here. Then it's time to go and start doing that all around the country. And I think I'm at that point where I'm getting at itch again. I want to go to Sydney. I want to go to Perth. I want to go to Adelaide. I want to go to Queensland. I want to wrestle the best everywhere, um, and see how I stand up to their best. Um, See if they can hang, and see just how good I actually am.
Yeah, I mean, I think Australian talent and Australian performers, there's so much here in Australia. And I think like each state is now really blossoming with their own talent as well. And we're starting to see some mixed matches coming over where it might be like a PWA guy going to MCW or EPW coming to PW or vice versa or wherever. And like these promotions starting to bring guys and girls across and really cross promoting, which I think is a good because it gives the Sydney fans a good chance to see, for example, someone from Melbourne, and the Melbourne fans someone to see someone from Perth or wherever. So I think there's definitely, Australia does it very, very well as far as like spreading the love for talent, I think.
Yeah, I think so, and I think the country's getting a lot smaller too in terms of promotions being willing to work with each other, um, and do those matches. Where it's Perth's best against Sydney's best, or Sydney's best against Melbourne's best. I think it benefits everyone because at the end of the day, if you're just in the same spot all the time, you're just wrestling the same dudes. It's just a rotation. You're going to be working the same people constantly. So the more people can come here, the more we can go there. I think it just benefits everyone. I would love to go to Sydney and wrestle Man, I would love to go to Sydney and wrestle Jimmy Townsend.
He's
I'd love
great.
to go to dude. He's incredible, and I think it's really time for him to blow up and show what he can do. So I'd love to be one of the guys who brings that out of him. I'd love to go there and wrestle him. I'd love to go to Perth and wrestle, Julian Ward, Taylor King, even, Damien Slater, Marcus Pitt. I'd love to wrestle David Storm again. Even, Adelaide, we got the big boy down here now. We got the
Tommy
big boy,
Knight.
the tag champ for MCW now. I'd love to wrestle him, Tommy Knight. There's a bunch of people, man. But like I said, it seems like this country is starting to get smaller and people are starting to want to book stuff like that. So hopefully all that stuff can happen real soon.
Like, since you become like, the main eventer for MCW and the guy there, like, have you felt like the pressure of a certain expectations of how you need to, carry yourself in front of other performers, in front of management, etc.?
Nah, not really. I've always just been myself, man. I've always said I'm just gonna be me. I'm not gonna let wrestling dictate the person I am. You know what I mean?
Sure.
When I go out there, I definitely want to perform to a certain standard. But like I'm not the guy in the back acting like some hot shot. You know what I mean? Like some big dog. I'm just me. I'm just chilling. I'm just there to have fun at the end of the day. I started wrestling because I loved wrestling. I'm not making a living from it. So until it's my job, I'm just gonna, I'm obviously going to work hard and treat it seriously, but at the same time, I'm just gonna have fun with it.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. I mean, because everyone, I think, when
Yeah.
you get involved in wrestling, you have to be able to be enjoying what you're doing. You have to be able to love what you're doing, because it's not like, making world changing money,
No.
here in Australia at the moment. But one of the things I want to ask you about, so, we touched earlier on the Brat Pack. Your former tag team partner, has there been much communication, with each other since he's left? Since you've had your rise into the world, into that main event slot, like, where's it at with him and your ex partner and yourself?
Yeah, we're great. Yeah, we talk all the time, man. He's doing really well in his personal life. Like he's killing it. He's doing amazing. Um, and the main thing to me that is awesome is he seems really really happy, and that's sick. Like we were literally just saying, if you're not having fun doing something, especially something like wrestling that literally destroys your body, whether you're doing it for fun or not, in 15
Yeah.
years, I'm going to be feeling this. I'm feeling it now, and I'm sure everyone in the back is feeling it. And in 20 years, that's just going to add up. So if you're not having a ton of fun with it, go find something that is going to bring you that same joy and that it isn't going to destroy your body. So that's what he's doing, and it's awesome. I'm super happy for him, and I'm super proud of him.
Do you think you'll end up coming back to wrestling at all?
I'm not sure. I'm honestly not sure. Part of me says yes, but part of me says no. I'd love to have him back. I'd love to have him back. I I always enjoyed being out there in front of a crowd with him. I think we had a chemistry that brought something out of me. Um, but on top of that too, I just really miss having him in the back and just having my mate around all the time to have fun with, just have a laugh with. Every locker room that Nick Berry's in is a better locker room because he brings the vibes up. He's one of those people. And you need people like that. It can't all be serious in the back. You need people for levity, and
Yeah.
he's that.
Yeah. I mean, I think you definitely need someone who's going to be able to sort of like cut the tension sometimes with a little bit of humor, and that's always good
Yeah.
to have around. Um, with the whole wrestling thing in itself, though, like, do do you still have that mindset? You did have a stint with Ring of Honor where you did some shows with them. Is internationally, is that something that you want to go? You mentioned you want to make a living at it eventually, but it is like an overseas trip on the cards soon.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I would love to head overseas next year. That's my goal at the moment. I would love to do some stuff overseas next year. Um, that tour with Ring of Honor was in the UK, and I absolutely loved it over there. So immediately after that happened, the plan for us was to definitely go straight back there. We were going to go straight back to the UK, and then we were going to head over and do more stuff with Ring of Honor, but we never got to do those things. So for me, it's always been in the back of my mind this whole time to head back to the UK, to both get that match experience, get those reps in, because I know the schedule over there can be hectic if you want it to be, which I think that would be great for me at the moment. But also just to train and learn a new style. Um, I think that's something I would just really enjoy doing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting how pro wrestling is. You know, it's pro wrestling's pro wrestling, but each country almost has their own different take to it. You know what I mean? Like the British strong style, the the US indie scene, the Japanese style, like all these different styles that sort of mesh that make this amazing product. What would you say would be like the Australian style of wrestling though?
I think the Australian style is a bit of a mix of everything, and I nearly think statewide it changes a little bit. Like I tend to think Melbourne is a little more of that kind of British strong style. Um,
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Sydney PWA is more of a uh, Japan Chikara type deal, and I
Yeah,
kind of feel
I feel
that
that,
way
yeah.
with Wrestle Rampage as well. I think statewide it kind of switches a bit, but I think the best answer is the country is a bit of a hybrid. Wherever you go, it changes a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the interesting part of it. It's like when you do see that mashup of styles and see like an interstate performer going up against someone from another state, you're seeing these two different styles mesh, and it's really interesting to see because sometimes the different styles make the best dance partners.
Yeah, and I think that was why the PWA MCW shows were so good because, like I said, I don't think the styles are necessarily the same between the two promotions. They're both great in their own ways, but seeing them mesh is a new thing altogether.
How did you find the two shows, the Coliseum shows, night one and night two?
Yeah, I thought they were really good shows. I enjoyed them for what they were. I thought they were very, very good. I thought the in-ring quality was great, and I was happy to be a part of it. It was a big opportunity to be defending the championship against Unsocial Jordan, um, and I really enjoyed it. It was good.
I liked the venue of night one. Like it had this like real ruggedness to it. I think you teamed with Cherry Stevens and Emin the Kid that show, if I'm correct.
Yeah, yeah, against SMS. Yeah, that venue was really cool. It kind of reminded me of Wrestle Rock a little bit. Um, but yeah, it was very different to a Thornbury Theatre show, but it was cool. It was a bit more of a punk rock kind of
Almost
vibe.
like a little bit, yeah. I was gonna say grungy punk rock type of thing.
Yeah,
How did you find the match on night one with teaming with Cherry and Emin?
it was fun. It was cool. It was I've always said Emin the Kid is awesome. Like I've trained with him. I've seen him grow. Like he's fantastic. So that was a lot of fun to do something with him in general because I don't think we've ever done anything together up until that point. And Cherry is someone who, from the first moment I saw her, I was swinging her flag, singing her praises, shouting as loud as I can. Everyone look at Cherry Stevens because she's awesome. I think she's the future of Australian wrestling. And actually, I think she's the future of just wrestling in general. I think she's like that talented that it's only a matter of time for her to go overseas and see what happens because yeah, she's that good.
She's phenomenal. You know, I think that the Coliseum shows that MCW and PWA put on were fantastic. They were absolutely amazing, spectaculars. You know, yourself, like, did you find like being like two promotions promoting the same two events essentially, was it confusing at all as far as like from a backstage perspective? Did you have like more people than usually there at shows? Like, was there any sort of like confusion that was happening backstage?
There was more people around. I didn't find it necessarily confusing. I just still went and talked to the people I usually talk to. If I had any questions that they couldn't answer, I would go find someone who I thought probably could answer it. But everyone kind of seemed to know what was going on. You know, if like someone from Melbourne didn't know what was going on, I'd ask one of the Sydney boys. They knew what was going on. Vice versa. It was pretty easy.
Yeah, I mean, do you see like the cross promotion with two promotions, you know, going forward? Could you see that as being a beneficial thing that we'll see more of in the next upcoming years?
I think we should. I hope that's the plan because I think we're a tiny little island at the bottom of the world, and I think
Mm.
the more voices together that are shouting at the same time makes a louder noise than five people shouting from other ends of the country. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I think if we all come together somehow, some way, I think that is one of the keys to the world getting their eyes on us because yeah,
I think
we're
I think
such
there's a lot of eyes already on Australian wrestling. To be honest, I think there's definitely
yeah.
eyes on overseas.
Oh, dude, there's a million times more eyes on us now than there was even like when I got into wrestling here. When I got into wrestling here, there was nobody
Yeah,
looking at Australian wrestling. I'm kind of blessed in the sense that I come up in the era where I started coming on us. Like dudes like Slex and Brooksy and Gino, all those guys were grinding for a very long time before they had that exposure. Whereas, uh, my generation, if I can even say that, there's not many of us, but um, I've kind of walked into that situation. Yes, I've worked hard too, but those guys' hard work have brought the eyes to our country, and that's not lost on me at all. I understand how lucky that is from a timing perspective.
yeah, 100%. And I think now, and I've said this before as well to many people, is now that we're seeing Australians in prominent positions, but signed to major companies overseas on weekly mainstream wrestling, is, you know, when I was a kid growing up, I'm not sure, like I'm probably a few years older than you, Mitch, but when I was a kid growing up, there was no Australians on mainstream wrestling. There just wasn't. I mean, I think the first one I can remember was Nathan Jones. You know what I mean? And that was
Yeah,
like, you know, and he wasn't exactly the most prime example of what makes Australian wrestling great, right?
yeah. Even he was slightly before my time. Like obviously, I've seen all of that now.
Yeah,
And even when I was younger, I'd get DVDs. But I my first live WrestleMania was 24. I'd watched 21, 22, 23 on DVD, but 24 was my first live
yeah.
one. So that gives you a bit of a grasp of where I started. So, like you said,
No
for me,
shit.
there was no one. There was no one.
Yeah.
I think Buddy was really the first guy, right? Buddy was the first big one. Um, when I started
To
going to shows here, Matt Silver got scooped up. I know Tennille got scooped up. Um,
yeah,
it
but
was
he was the one
Tennille and
I
it was
think who
him.
really. I think yeah, I think Buddy was the one who really sort of like broke you know what I mean? Like he really broke through. You know, I think when he won like the cruiserweight title in Melbourne at the
Yeah.
Super Show, like his entrance, I remember watching that on TV. He got a bigger fucking pop than the main event. Like, you know what I mean? Like that was,
Oh,
I think that's probably what also brought a lot of eyes to Australian wrestling because if they thought, well, hang on, why is this guy getting such a huge pop? Even
mm,
though, like, yes, this is his hometown, whatever, but like this is a guy we've got on 205 live. Like to them, do you think
yeah.
that they would then go, hold on a second, what have we got here?
Hopefully, and I think that's definitely a thing because I know that there are people who have been made aware of Australian wrestling from, like, for example, Robbie Eagles in New Japan. I know that for a fact. So I'm sure people hear that reaction and go, well, why is he getting that reaction? It can't just be from what we've seen on TV. Um, and I remember, no
No,
disrespect to anyone on
100%.
the show, but I remember being there. And when he won that title, man, I remember I had goosebumps everywhere because it was insane. To this day, it's probably the loudest reaction I've ever heard at any kind of event. I don't go to sporting events a lot and stuff. So to be in like a building that big for me, I was like, whoa, that was insane.
Well, he was like the first Australian to win a WWE championship, and I think that was like he was I think it was like the cruiserweight title he won that. And he was the first Australian to win a singles title as well. So to do that in front of his
Yeah.
hometown, that's pretty cool shit.
Yeah, it's insane.
And I
And he
think as
won
well,
the tag titles as well in NXT before that, which even that was really cool at the time.
100%. But I think as well, like people in the crowd for that show to see him win that, going, we've just witnessed something special here. Like we're witnessing
Yeah.
history right here.
Yeah, it was very, very cool.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, I got sent something. Where is it? And I wanted to. Oh, here it is. I wanted to bring it up, and I wanted to kind of get it. You to explain what this meant. So I'm going to bring it up. So, to all of our people listening on a podcast platform, I've just displayed a sign that was sent in to me from one of our listeners and good friends, Alcoholic Adam, which reads, the Brat Pack makes me moist.
Do you want the PG version or the nah?
we're uncensored, baby. You can say whatever you fucking want, Mitch.
Nah.
On,
so
then.
I think that's just. I think that was just because in our entrance we would have the squirt bottle.
Yeah.
And for me, I'd have the soaked hair, and I would go for the high five, swoop, and wet people. We just know how to make people wet around here, man. Just make them real moist.
I love it. So that was a Brat Pack thing, just getting people moist all around the country.
Yeah, just real wet, man. Like there were times at MCW where like it wasn't just about getting the crowd wet. Like there would be times where there would be panic in the back, the promoters running around screaming, "Where's Mitch? Where's Mitch? Your music's playing." Blah blah blah. I was chill. I was just somewhere getting more wet. I wasn't wet enough to go out there. I had to go get some hydration happening because I wasn't moist enough. But I had to stay at a certain wetness. I had to first reach that wetness and then maintain it, and that was difficult, and it's difficult to this day. But it has to be done.
Yeah, you got to stay moist, stay hydrated, my friend.
You have to, moisty Mitch.
Moisty Mitch Waterman, I like it. There you go. You can call yourself H2O Waterman.
There we go. That was my first tag team I broke into, H2O.
Really? That was the name.
That's why my name's Mitch Waterman. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's cool. So, who was your original tag partner in that in H2O?
Damian Rivers.
Oh no, shit.
Rivers, yeah, so Waterman, that's why we were H2O. Yeah.
How long did you and Damian Rivers tag together?
We tagged for probably like a year, maybe longer than a year. But we were tag champions. We had a run. Like when I first broke into wrestling, I was with Damo for a long time.
Yeah, where did you guys work? MCW or was it around other places?
No, NAW. It's a small promotion here, but some guys have come out of there. JXT come out of there. Tyson Baxter come out of there. I come out of there. Damo come out of there. There's been some guys.
Yeah, right. And like him going into doing like death matches and stuff like that, is there a potential matchup like between him that you could see yourselves having like down the line? And would you go into that death match realm?
I've done some stuff before. Me and Damo have actually had a hardcore match at NAW before.
Yeah.
We used tacks, we used barbed wire. I've done tacks before, I've done barbed wire before, I've done tables before. I've done that stuff. Who knows? I'll never say never to anything in wrestling, but uh, at the moment, that kind of style is not my focus. Just
Sure.
because it sounds stupid, but actually, a big reason for it is I scar really easy. So I've even got scars from that hardcore match with Damo from barbed wire because just from little cuts, it scars me, man. So I want to, I don't want to get mutilated. I'm still young. Maybe when I'm not pretty anymore, I'll go and rip myself to shreds. But that day has not come. Maybe if I don't feel like working out anymore, I'll chuck the shirt on and I'll get in there and start taping me fists. But today is
Yeah.
not that day.
In about 30 years' time, you'll become the Australian Terry Funk.
There we go. I will never say no to being Terry Funk.
Hey, there you go, man. Yeah, look, I think like as far as the deathmatch wrestling goes, like, do you think that certain performers that go and dabble in that style, that it does kind of like put them in a category that other workers might not necessarily want to work with, or promotions might not want to book because they categorize them as deathmatch workers?
No, it's a touchy subject, but this is my take on deathmatch wrestling. I love it. I think it's awesome. I'm not in the camp that hates deathmatch wrestling. I'm in the camp that hates anything done super poorly that's promoted like it's great because that puts a stain on our country. I hate anything that's promoted as this big, great thing, top of the line. Everyone, look at Australia. This is happening here. If that's happening, I feel everything on it has to be very, very good. And I think deathmatch wrestling has the potential to tell amazing, incredible stories, even to the point where, normal wrestling matches can't uh, tell those same stories. You can get a lot of drama out of that stuff.
Yeah.
I think when it's done really well, it can be amazing. My issue is when people don't know how to do it. And I think that's not just deathmatch wrestling. That's any wrestling that's promoted as this great, awesome thing that when you watch it, you go, that wasn't as great and awesome as I thought.
Hmm.
That to me is bad for Australian wrestling. Now that's not shitting on promotions or individual wrestlers.
No.
That's just my take on bad wrestling in general. So yeah, long story short, I love death matches if they're done really well. I can see the benefit in it, but I unfortunately only see one or two people here actually doing it well, and that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Like, I think, like, I'm a huge fan of deathmatch wrestling. You know, I grew up
Yeah,
in the '90s, early 2000s, where it was like at its peak. I
dude,
actually probably
Foley
think
and Funk is awesome back in the day. Foley and
100%,
Funk, I love all that stuff.
100% same here. But I think as well now, like, I think maybe because I get older, I look at it and go, why would you put yourself through that? I still enjoy watching
Mm,
it, but I sit there and go, why would you go through that? Like, you know what I
yeah,
mean? And again, like, I haven't experienced that, and I know pro wrestling is an illusion. So it's like, yeah, maybe it's not as bad as it looks, but going through a plate of glass doesn't exactly seem like something I want to find out if it hurts or not. But it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure everything in wrestling hurts. But like, I think deathmatch wrestling, when done right and tells a good story, it's perfect. But it's like anything,
yeah,
you know, bad wrestling's bad wrestling, no matter if it's comedy wrestling, whether it's lucha wrestling, tag wrestling, heavyweight wrestling. If it's bad, it's bad. Good wrestling's good
exactly.
wrestling. And you can have good wrestling and incorporate gimmicks and tell a story.
Yeah, and I love gimmicks. They're one of the things that got me into wrestling. And part of me hates calling them gimmicks at all because man, you get hit by a ladder, it hurts. You get hit by a chair, it hurts. But yeah, I grew up on the TLC matches, the Hardys, the Dudleys, Edge and Christian. Like they were my favorite matches. I loved ladder matches, table matches, all that stuff. I loved it. And then as I got older, I would see, Funk in Japan. Um, I would see CZW, like Tournament of Death. And I thought, well, man, this shit crazy, you know. Even PWG, the guerrilla warfare matches. Like I'm still am to this day. I'm into all that stuff. I love it when it's done well.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've seen some like death matches where like because I love watching indie wrestling and I'll go on independent wrestling TV or Fight TV and find something and just go watch it. And I've seen like a death match where it's like literally both guys walking around the ring just doing this, just slicing
It's
their own
embarrassing.
forehead. Like they were just
That's
literally walking
embarrassing.
around like digging, and I'm just like, for fuck's sake, man! Like we know it's a work, but just
Yeah.
let us believe it. You know what I mean? Like try and hide that shit.
And it's crazy to me because a lot of that stuff hurts. And if you start doing it like it doesn't hurt, number one, you're pretty stupid. If you're doing stuff that actually hurts and acting like it doesn't hurt, to me that doesn't make you tough. It makes you silly, right? You should be getting. I'm not going to go on a psychology class in wrestling, but you should
No.
probably be getting mileage out of stuff that really hurts you. Is all I say.
But you know what? Like I look at things like people not selling a move, like certain things as well, like getting power bombed and popping straight back up. And even as a kid, when I watched Taz do it in ECW, I went, "Well, you just killed that other person's fucking gimmick, dude. Like, really?
Yeah,
Like, what happens when the next
yeah.
person takes it? They don't pop back up. All right, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Things
I
done
feel
in
like
moderation can work, and if they're done right, they can work. It's just, yeah. I'm going on a rant, but I think you get what I'm trying to say.
yeah, no, dude, I completely get it. I completely agree with you as well because when I sit down and watch it as well, it's like for me, someone who isn't trained who can sit there and go, "Whoa, that looked awful," or that didn't look right," or you know what I mean. Like for someone who isn't trained
Yeah,
to be able to pick that up, I think that says a lot as well for us. Like sometimes how bad it can be. Whereas like you being a trained wrestler, sitting there and watching two people wrestle you should be able to sit there and go, oh, that guy was off there or this was good there. You know what I mean? Like you should be able to break it down after being in the business for a few years, not someone who's
yeah,
just sitting there who bought a ticket.
yeah. Well, exactly. And just like anything, you know, musicians, I'm sure, have their opinions on music. Artists have their opinions on painting. I've got opinions on wrestling, and I just think, yeah, like you said earlier, th- uh, things that are done well, uh, you can't argue it, right? If something's done really well, you know it was good. But when things are done poorly, even the untrained eye can see that it's not being done how it should be done.
100%, 100%. And you know what? Like, for example, something I think that was done really well was what Impact did a few years ago. And I've mentioned this again before on other podcasts where they had Sammy Callahan versus Tessa Blanchard. And I think that was like, you know what I mean? Like where intergender wrestling was becoming more of the norm in like more
Mm,
independent wrestling around that sort of time. Well, probably it already was, but Impact sort of embraced it. But I feel like they told an amazing story with that. Whereas like the reason
yes.
why the match was like that, there was like they just fucking hated each other so much that he wanted to fucking punch a woman and she wanted to fight a man. And they built
Yeah.
this story up about it. And to me, I thought, you know what, that is done brilliantly because now she is a believable person who's going to go and fight this guy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You've told a story that people have bought into. They want to see the conclusion, and now it just makes sense. You're excited to see it, um, and I think using it's so strange to me that you know I understand why people can be upset about certain things and whatnot in wrestling, but I like to think of it like this with a lot of things. If I like oranges, right, and I walk up to an orange tree and there's only two oranges there on that tree. One's at the very top of the tree, so I'm going to have to climb this tree to get it. But the other one is low hanging fruit and it's fallen off the tree and it's on the floor right in front of me and it's ripe and it's juicy and it's looking real good. Am I going to climb the tree and get that one, or am I going to get the low hanging fruit if it makes sense to get that? I don't think there's become this thing in wrestling where everyone's like, it's low hanging fruit. You should be more creative than that to tell a story, blah, blah, blah. If there is an obvious story that can be compelling and it's easy for people to understand and get emotionally invested in, sometimes it should be okay to run with that because it makes sense and people will understand it. I understand, you know, different people have different beliefs, but that's just my view on storytelling in general. Like you just said, that was a very easy story to understand. It was compelling, and it was a great way to introduce intergender wrestling as a thing on television in an easy way for you to understand. Not everyone has a deep understanding of things to where they can go, okay, um, this is just, two wrestlers wrestling. To the naked
Yeah.
eye, that's not necessarily the case. And I know that firsthand from promotions I've wrestled for here in Melbourne over the years that have tried intergender wrestling, just tried it out of nowhere, and they've had complaints from women, right? So to me, that says to the naked eye, we need to tell stories to train them to understand why this is acceptable. We can't just expect people to understand straight away.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you have like wrestling fans, like non-mainstream wrestling fans that don't, you know what I mean? Like that don't see that don't come to shows. Whereas I feel like if you pulled Bob and Beryl from the local RSL club into the local wrestling thing for the first time in 30 years, and they see a Jess Troy versus Mitch Waterman, for example, they probably not going to understand that and go, why is this guy hitting this girl? You know what I mean? Like, why is this guy fighting? You know what I mean? Whereas like more fans who have been more consistent with the product and with like their finger on the pulse are going to understand that, well, wrestling's wrestling. This is what it is. You know what I mean? Like I remember when AEW first started, and so, I can't remember. I was on a podcast with someone, not doing an interview, but on something else. And someone was on this podcast was getting their nose out of joint because Nyla Rose was in the women's division of AEW. And I'm like, why are you so upset with this? And they're going, oh, well, it's not fair that these women have to wrestle Nyla Rose, blah, blah. I'm like, wrestling's a work, right? Like, Mae Young took a power bomb by fucking Bubba Ray Dudley through a fucking table.
Yeah.
That Fabulous Moolah did the same thing. And all this stuff. And they're going, oh, but no, like Nyla Rose is so much bigger. They can hurt these female talent. I'm like, if you're wrestling for a mainstream wrestling promotion, you should be able to wrestle anyone, no matter if they're Hornswoggle size or they're Big Show size, and have a safe match. Like, sorry, like, you know what I mean? Like, I was just nailing everything because it's like, it's wrestling. Like, why are you so invested in this one small aspect of it?
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like, those people just need to be educated on, diversity. And
100%.
at the end of the day, she's a woman in the women's division, and we need different shape and size wrestlers. Like, we need Big Shows, we need Rey Mysterios. But back to the women too. Like I was saying, to the untrained eye, it can be confusing if there's not a story in place that they understand. But as a wrestler, I love it. And I would love to wrestle, Jess Troy and
100%.
Cherry Stephens even. I think they're two of the best wrestlers we have in general here. They're incredible. But yeah, I think there's ways to do things to make it digestible to everyone. So we're not excluding anyone. That goes with deathmatch wrestling. That goes for intergender wrestling, which, again, we should get to the point where it's just wrestling. That word isn't even needed. But that is done through telling stories and explaining to the untrained eye, how we get to that point.
Yeah, I think it's about educating the audience, really. Like, it's taking them on for the journey, and also, putting these storylines in where they're starting to get it. I mean, like, you go to, any mainstream Australian wrestling show, and there's going to be 1, 2, 3, intergender matches on a card, and it's almost expected. Where it's like now I don't even, when I first started going to shows and I started seeing intergender wrestling live, I was like, huh? And now it's just like, oh shit, I didn't even realize, you know what I mean? Like I didn't flip in my mind what it was, because it's like I can sit here and watch good wrestling. I can sit here and watch an enjoyable match where, if the selling's good, the match is believable. Okay, cool. If it takes me out of the realm of believability, and I've had matches where it's like two guys are having a match or two women have having a match, and I've just gone, I don't believe that for, you know what I mean? Like it's taken me out of that realm.
Exactly.
That's where keep me in that realm of believability.
Yeah. And, like going back to Coliseum, I thought, Jess and Robbie and Charlie and Robbie were incredible. So that just goes to show what we can do when given those opportunities.
Yeah, no, I think so. I agree, and I think that there's a lot more that the Australian wrestling can really show the world as far as like how to be more diverse in that sort of area. Because I feel like, in Australian wrestling, like you look at our female performers, and I think we've probably got some of the best women in the world, if not the best women in the world, as well as tag teams.
We do, and
but I
it's not
think
even
that's
close.
yeah, but you know what? I think it's because there's so much of that diversity, whereas like majority of promotions worth their weight in gold are going to have people wrestling everybody. That's just the way it is. If you're a good performer, you can work in the ring, you're going to be on a show.
Exactly. And you deserve to be.
Yeah, 100%. And it doesn't matter about gender, race, or any of that shit.
Nope.
But it is that time of the show. We're at 60 seconds with Piers. We're going to get the game started very, very soon. And how it works is I'm going to ask Mitch a bunch of questions. He's got 60 seconds to answer as many questions as he can. Now, Mitch, are you ready to get this game started?
Let's do it.
All right, we'll start the clock. First up, Snapchat or TikTok?
Snapchat.
What is something that you enjoy that you are embarrassed to admit that you like? Kind of like a guilty pleasure.
Elvis.
What was the first concert you ever went to?
Slipknot.
You're inviting a special person over to cook them dinner. What are you going to cook?
Oh, man. I wish it was breakfast because I would cook them a mean omelet. But if it's dinner, maybe like a chicken parma?
Well, it depends how good dinner goes, mate. Then you can worry about breakfast. But what languages can you speak? What languages can you speak besides English?
None fluently. Little bit of Macedonian. I'm learning at the moment.
If you could delete one word from the English language, what word would it be?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Damn, I can't even answer that. I don't actually know. That's a really hard question off the top of your head.
Okay. If you had to get rid of one thing in professional wrestling, whether it be a move or whatever, what would it be?
Ooh, so many things. I'm panicking. Uh, God, I'm just gonna throw shit at the wall. Oh man, there's so much that I don't know what to say. Maybe off the top of my head, I'm gonna say, not selling Canadian destroyers. Boom, there we go. Cool.
If you were given a lion as a pet, what would you name him or her?
If I was given a what? Sorry.
A lion as a pet, what would you name it?
Oh, Jeff. I don't know why, Jeff.
I like it. Shout out to Jeff. And last one, in 5 minutes' time, you're being shipped to outer space. What 2 personal belongings do you take with you, excluding human beings?
Um, well, maybe my phone so I can communicate with people on Earth. And probably water. I'll probably get pretty thirsty up there, so maybe water.
Got to stay moist.
Gotta stay moist.
That has been 60 seconds. That's been 60 seconds with Piers with Mitch Waterman. Mitch, thank you so much for coming back on the show, man. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's great talking to you. Where can everyone find you on social media, and where can someone get some of that moisty merch and support you?
You can get merch at shows. I don't have like a store set up online, but they're available at the shows I wrestle at. You can find me at Mitch Waterman PW on Instagram and Twitter, and just Mitch Waterman on Facebook. This Saturday, I'm going to be defending the GPW Championship against Liam Lacey, against GPW at GPW Incursion. I'm going to be wrestling him. He's a Tasmania kid, so that should be a lot of fun. And then after that, MCW 12, it's going to be massive. We are yet to see what is happening there, but hopefully it is something very cool.
So GPW that you're going to be wrestling for, like what can people expect from their shows? Like, are they a smaller fed? Like what's, as we talked about them earlier in the show, but I haven't really heard much about them.
Fun family shows. If anyone wants to make the trip up, it's a pretty easy drive to get up to Traralgon. The shows are always fun. They always deliver. You're going to see some different talent up there that you wouldn't usually get to see in Melbourne. You're going to see, your dudes like Fox, guys like that, Cousin Ali. They're kind of the regulars on the shows, and then we'll usually wrestle a lot of the Traralgon guys. This show, it's TCW versus GPW, so a lot of guys from Tasmania are coming up to wrestle us. I got Liam Lacey, so that should be fun. But yeah, if anyone wants to come check it out, they're always fun shows. You can bring the whole family. It's family friendly. And yeah, they draw well. It's awesome. I love GPW.
Go and check it out, guys, and make sure you go check out Mitch Waterman on social media. Mitch, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Everyone, please make sure you tap that little red button and tap in to Shooting the Shit Uncensored. Mitch, I appreciate you. We'll talk to you again very soon. Take care, everyone. We'll see you again very soon. Peace.